When 78-year-old Martha realized her blood pressure spiked every time her nephew called, she started paying attention. It wasn't the conversation, she said. It was the dread. Every phone call turned into a one-sided complaint. His money problems, his anger toward other relatives, his endless, "you owe me" speeches. By the time I hung up, Martha recalled, I felt exhausted and guilty, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. That's when she made a quiet but life-changing decision. She stopped answering every call. Not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. Because here's the truth. Most people never say out loud. Sometimes peace means creating distance, even from family. As we age, our time, energy, and emotional bandwidth become precious. Yet many seniors still carry relationships that drain rather than lift them, relatives who bring stress, guilt, or chaos into every interaction. For years, we're taught to keep the family together at all costs. But after 60, you begin to realize that not all costs are worth paying. It doesn't mean you stop loving people. It means you protect your peace. Psychologists call this emotional boundary preservation, and it's vital for both mental and physical health in later life. When you remove chronic negativity from your daily environment, blood pressure stabilizes, cortisol, the stress hormone drops, and your overall sense of well-being improves. In simple terms, letting go of toxic family dynamics is good medicine. This doesn't just apply to obvious troublemakers. Sometimes it's the quiet guilt givers, the relatives who manipulate with kindness, who leave you feeling small or responsible for their unhappiness. They're harder to spot because they don't yell or insult, but they slowly erode your peace, one subtle conversation at a time. You've probably heard the saying, blood is thicker than water. But few people know the full phrase, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means that bonds you choose, friendships, community, or love, built on respect, can be stronger than family ties built on obligation. After 60, it's time to choose peace over pressure, calm over chaos, and respect over resentment. In today's video, we'll talk about 6 types of relatives you may need to avoid after 60, not out of anger, but out of self-care. These are real patterns seen across countless families, and understanding them could save your emotional health, your time, and even your heart. Some of these might sound familiar: the constant critic, the manipulative helper, or the relative who still treats you like you're incapable of making decisions. But number 5 will surprise you because it's a kind of person most seniors never realize is slowly draining their spirit. We'll also talk about how to set boundaries without guilt, how to recognize when help is actually control, and how to stay loving while protecting yourself from emotional exhaustion. If you've ever felt drained after family visits or phone calls, please tap the like button, subscribe to Senior Ways, and share this video with a friend who needs it. And tell us in the comments, have you ever had to distance yourself from a relative for your peace of mind? Because at this stage of life, your happiness isn't a luxury, it's your right. And protecting your peace might be the most loving thing you ever do for yourself and for those who truly care about you. Relative type number 1, the constant critic. When 77-year-old Dennis visits his sister, he braces himself before ringing the doorbell. She doesn't even mean to hurt me, he says. But every time I see her, she points out something wrong: my clothes, my hair, even how I walk. She'll laugh and say things like, "You've let yourself go a bit, haven't you?" Or, "You really should exercise more." Dennis smiles politely, but inside he feels small. This is the constant critic, a relative who turns every interaction into a subtle evaluation. They may believe they're helping or being honest, but what they're really doing is eroding your self-worth. And after 60, that emotional erosion takes a toll. Psychologists say repeated criticism, even when disguised as concern, activates the body's stress response the same way physical danger does. Over time, it raises blood pressure, weakens the immune system, and can even affect memory. The brain begins to anticipate judgment before it happens, making family gatherings emotionally exhausting. Dennis finally found peace by doing something simple but powerful: limiting contact. "I realized I don't owe her my weekends," he said. "Now I call once in a while, keep it short, and focus on people who lift me instead of tear me down." That's the lesson here: protect your confidence like your health. If someone constantly criticizes your choices, appearance, or habits, you're allowed to take a step back. You're not being rude, you're choosing respect. As one therapist put it, boundaries aren't walls, they're doors you control. If you feel drained after every visit, it's okay to close that door for a while. Your self-esteem doesn't need to be anyone's target practice. Relative type number 2, the family martyr. 79-year-old Carol describes her cousin Judy as the sweetest, most exhausting person alive. Judy always begins conversations with "Don't worry about me," followed immediately by a list of her sacrifices, how she took care of everyone else, how no one appreciates her, and how lonely she feels, despite doing everything for the family. Carol says, "By the time she's done talking, I feel guilty just for being happy." This is the family martyr, the relative who manipulates through self-pity. They use guilt as their currency, subtly reminding everyone how much they've given and how little they've received. Their kindness often comes with an emotional invoice. The tricky part is martyrs are not bad people. They often have big hearts and real pain underneath. But their constant emotional burden can feel suffocating. Every interaction becomes a test of loyalty. If you really loved me, you'd visit more, or you never call anymore, but I guess I shouldn't expect that at my age. According to Dr. Harriet Lerner, a psychologist who studies family dynamics, guilt-driven relationships are one of the most draining forms of emotional manipulation. They create what she calls love debt, the feeling that you always owe something even when you've done nothing wrong. Carol eventually realized that Judy's sadness wasn't hers to fix. "I started changing the subject when she complained," she said, "and if she got too negative, I'd say kindly, 'Judy, I love you, but let's talk about something happy today.'" At first, Judy resisted, but over time she either adjusted or cut the call short herself. That's the secret compassion with boundaries. You can care about someone deeply without becoming their emotional caretaker. When you stop feeding the guilt loop, it loses its power. Carol smiles now and says, "I used to feel guilty for stepping back. Now I feel free." Relative type number 3, the drama magnet. 80-year-old Paul says he can always tell when his niece Sherry is about to call because the drama seems to follow the ring. Every time she calls, it's a crisis, he laughs. Someone offended her, someone betrayed her, or she's starting another fight in the family. Paul says he used to get drawn in offering advice or trying to calm her down. But somehow, no matter what I said, I'd end up the bad guy too. That's the signature of the drama magnet, a relative who thrives on chaos. They live for emotional reactions, pulling everyone into their storms of gossip, conflict, and exaggerated emotion. Psychologists say these individuals often create drama unconsciously to feel important or to avoid their own deeper insecurities. But for those around them, the constant roller coaster becomes exhausting. Over time, exposure to drama-driven interactions can actually raise cortisol, the stress hormone leading to fatigue, anxiety, and even trouble sleeping. It's like being in an argument that never ends, Paul says. Eventually, Paul decided to take a different approach. "Now when she calls, I listen, but I don't get pulled in," he said. "If she's talking about someone else's problems, I'll say, 'I hope you can work that out,' and I leave it there." He keeps the calls short and polite without letting her energy spill into his day. The key here is emotional detachment, not coldness, but calm control. You can care about someone without becoming part of their chaos. When you refuse to feed the fire, the drama burns itself out. Paul says, "It took me 80 years to learn that peace doesn't need defending, it just needs protecting." Relative type number 4, the "I know what's best for you" controller. 76-year-old Eleanor still remembers the day her younger brother Jim took her car keys and announced, "You shouldn't be driving anymore." He hadn't asked, hadn't discussed, he just decided. "I felt like a child again," she said. "I know he thought he was helping, but it was humiliating." That's the controller relative, the one who hides control under the mask of care. They often mean well, but their need to manage, fix, or decide for others strips away independence and dignity. For seniors especially, those navigating health changes, this can be one of the most emotionally damaging family dynamics. Controllers usually come from fear of losing someone, fear of being responsible if something goes wrong. But their actions often send the opposite message: "I don't trust you to make choices." Over time, this can cause seniors to withdraw or doubt their own abilities. Eleanor found a graceful way to push back. She sat Jim down and said, "I love that you care about me. But when you take over without asking, it makes me feel small. Let's make decisions together, not against each other." To her surprise, Jim softened. "He told me he just didn't want anything to happen to me," she said. Now before he jumps in, he asks. Experts in geriatric psychology call this restoring agency, the process of reasserting control over your own life. It doesn't mean rejecting help, but redefining how it's offered. Saying phrases like, "I appreciate your concern, but I'll let you know when I need guidance," can draw clear lines without conflict. Eleanor says, "The day I spoke up, I got my voice back and my confidence. Remember this, you don't have to surrender your decisions to keep peace. True care feels like respect, not control." Relative type number 5, the always needy adult child. The shocking one. 78-year-old Patricia never thought she'd need to avoid her own son, but that's exactly what happened. He's 50, but he still calls me for everything she says. Money advice favors even when he's fighting with his wife. I love him, but I'm tired. This is the always needy adult child. The one most seniors struggle to admit drains them emotionally and financially. It's shocking because love for our children feels unconditional, but sometimes that love becomes one-sided, leaving parents feeling used instead of appreciated. Patricia's son Jason wasn't a bad person, he was simply too dependent. Whenever Patricia tried to set limits, he guilted her with lines like, "You're the only one who understands me," or "You don't want me to fail, do you?" Over time, she realized that his needs had become habits that kept both of them stuck. Experts call this enabling through love. It happens when parents continue rescuing adult children from every difficulty, believing they're helping, but actually reinforcing dependence. The emotional cost is high. Seniors feel drained, anxious, and sometimes even resentful of the very person they love most. Patricia eventually drew a line. I told him, "I will always love you, but I can't keep solving your problems. You have to live your own life now." It wasn't easy. There were tears, silence, and guilt. But a few months later, Jason found a better job and began taking care of his own bills. For the first time, Patricia says, "I felt like his mom again, not his safety net." Love isn't about endless sacrifice. It's about balance. Protecting your peace doesn't mean rejecting your children. It means teaching them how to stand tall, even when you're not there to hold them up. Relative type number 6, the disappearing relative, when distance turns into neglect. 82-year-old George laughs bitterly when people talk about big family gatherings. "I haven't seen my daughter in 2 years, he says. "She's busy," she says, "always busy." George doesn't hold anger, just disappointment. "It's not that I need anything," he adds. "I just want to know I still matter." This is the disappearing relative, the one who slowly fades from your life until contact becomes rare or non-existent. Sometimes they're adult children, sometimes nieces, nephews, or siblings. They don't cause chaos, they cause silence. And that silence can hurt more than words ever could. Loneliness is more than emotional, it's physical. The National Institute on Aging reports that chronic loneliness can increase the risk of dementia, heart disease, and even early death. The body experiences social isolation as stress, and the heart keeps score. But here's the truth. Many seniors overlook you can't always change others, but you can choose where to invest your love. Instead of chasing the ones who disappear, nurture relationships with those who show up. Friends, neighbors, church groups, even online communities can become chosen family. George eventually stopped waiting by the phone. He joined a local veterans group and found people who called him brother. "It's funny," he says, "I spent years waiting for one person to care, and when I looked around, I found 10 who already did." The painful truth. Some relatives drift away, but your life doesn't have to drift with them. Focus on presence, not absence. You deserve companionship that values your time and your heart. Final thoughts. So let's take a moment to look back. After 60, protecting your peace becomes as vital as protecting your health. The relatives you may need distance from aren't necessarily bad people, but they can be bad for your spirit. The constant critic chips away at your confidence. The family martyr drains your joy with guilt. The drama magnet thrives on chaos. The controller takes your choices away. The always needy adult child blurs love with dependence, and the disappearing relative wounds you with absence. But here's the good news: you have the right and the wisdom to choose peace. You can still love people from a distance. You can still pray for them, wish them well, and set boundaries that protect your mental health and emotional energy. After all, peace isn't selfish, it's self-preserving. So if any of these stories sound familiar, take a deep breath and remember your happiness matters. You've spent decades caring for others. Now it's time to care for yourself. If this message resonated with you, please tap the like button, subscribe to Senior Ways, and share this video with someone who needs strength to let go. And in the comments, tell us, have you ever had to distance yourself from a relative to protect your peace? Because family isn't just who you're born to, it's who helps your heart rest easy.